Formula One Philosophy is back for our Imola Grand Prix recap. The 2025.
Nicholas,
Yes?
what's the Imola Grand Prix? I don't know what that is.
The San Marino Grand Prix or the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix hold on.
That's the one.
Del
Finish it.
MSC Cruises. Shit. It's too many names. We tried. We did it last year. We got it, and now it's over. Yeah. Literally, it's over. Are you looking it up, or I'm going to look it up?
I'm looking it up. Let's see. Oh, fucking Christ. Just load already. No, I don't want to watch the 2023 Dutch Grand Prix.
AWS Grand Premio del Made in Italy, a del Emilia Romagna 25. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's the only
And
thing.
for those of you that are keeping track, he pretends to be Italian.
Shut up. Traitor Italian, as I'm called. Anyways, listen, we were on track, on target for like 5 seconds. But just naturally, this is how we talk. So, anyways, great Grand Prix. Absolutely wonderful. If it is the last one, it was quite the way to go out. And there's a lot to talk about. I think every team, all 10 teams, had a story this week. So I think we're going to slowly get through it if we can. Hopefully we can keep it within a reasonable time frame. But knowing us, 4 hours later, we'll be done this conversation. So first off, how was your week, Sean?
Week was okay. Finally able to get some work done, so that was good. How was yours?
I didn't work, so this is my only job of the week. Back at it tomorrow.
Wow. Lazy.
Lazy bum. Can't do that soon, though. No. I'm having a baby. I guess we haven't really announced it on the podcast. I'm pregnant. I will be giving birth. And yeah, that's that.
Yeah. The end is near, everyone.
Mm-hmm. For my job.
Nick is having a child.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, it's either a sweet girl or a boy that takes over the world and terrorizes you all. Either way, I'm happy. Sean, what did you think of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix? Imola, del MSC, del AWS. Anyways, what did you think?
I thought it was great. And I think if we lose it, then F1 has completely lost the plot. So hopefully it stays. I do want to correct something I said in the last episodes. I kind of got wrapped up in bitching about people complaining that Imola was too small for F1, that F1 had outgrown Imola. And I made the comment that we haven't outgrown Monza, which didn't make any sense, and I heard it when I listened back to the recording. What I meant was we haven't outgrown Monaco. So how do we outgrow Imola? So correcting the record there, and it's fitting to correct it now because here we are at Monaco this weekend. But as far as the Grand Prix, it was great. I think that track is difficult to overtake on, but we got a prime example this year of difficult isn't impossible, and difficult makes for good racing, and that's what we want to see.
And great overtakes. Perfectly said, by the way. Let me just say that. Absolutely perfectly said, because I was going to get into that in part 2, that if Monaco is somehow good, how the hell is Imola bad? But yeah, perfectly said. Just because it's difficult to overtake means the overtakes will be spectacular, as we saw in turn 1. And that will get us, I guess, into the good. This is the good part of this episode, which Sean and I will talk about our goods and maybe some meh. Obviously, a good is Verstappen and even Red Bull, right? Like, what an excellent overtake in turn 1. What an excellent race, perfectly executed. They dominated in a way that I think has scared McLaren. At least they're saying so. And yeah, there's nothing much else to say. He won clearly. He was up by more than a pit stop until the 2 virtual safety cars. And you could say that McLaren had a perfect opportunity to get back in the race, and they couldn't because Max executed that track perfectly. And one other reason to keep Imola is that you consistently see at this course that the cream rises to the top. All the people who've won this race the most, if you look at it, it's Verstappen, Schumacher, even Hamilton, Prost, Senna. Those are all the greatest winners here. Why would you ever want to lose this track? Yeah, but sorry.
I mean, just keep in mind it was off the calendar for a long time.
For 14 years, yeah, but that was, remember, they had their whole safety kick. But as I've pointed out...
Which they're still part of.
Yes, but as I've pointed out, I think they're slowly getting away from that because Las Vegas exists, which is the most unsafe track there is, I think. So...
One of, yeah.
Yeah. And as we saw in was it FP2 of the first year where the drain cover came out, or FP1? Not very safe.
FP2, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Where Carlos found out what it feels like to drop the soap.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, he's lucky to get out of Ferrari alive, eh? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sean, what did you think about Verstappen, Red Bull? Are they also in your good too?
I mean, Verstappen is good here. We know that, and he's shown it again. He clearly loves this place. That overtake into turn one, I mean, we all knew it was coming. You put Piastri next to Verstappen this year on the front row, and they're going to go into turn one fighting. And an extension of that is if there's a McLaren alongside, it's going to be a fight regardless, but it gets particularly spicy with Oscar and Max. But I have to say, for a track that's allegedly too small, too tight for F1, that was a drama-free overtake.
Mm-hmm.
It was exciting. There was a lot in it, and it was an audacious move. But they both stayed out of the gravel trap. They both stayed on track. There was no question about penalties. There was no question about he pushed me off, he did this, he did that, whatever. It was an amazing move. And even I think Russell's come out and said, like, he doesn't know how Max did it. That's got to be overtake of the year. You know, that will probably hold up as overtake of the year all season. So I think it was fantastic. And like you said, he ran away with it after that. So it's definitely a good for him. And then, yeah, as a second to that, I think Red Bull as a whole had a good weekend.
Yeah, their pit stops were on point finally. McLaren was fucking up their pit stops like Red Bull wasn't. It's like roles reversed. It just seemed like
they're
go on.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it just seemed like Max and Red Bull aligned their confidences, and they both had confidence, and they both executed and knew exactly what they needed to do. There was no weariness. There was no unsure that we've seen, or anxiety that we've seen in the first 6 races. They knew what they needed to do, and everybody did what they needed to do. Max, yeah, I think we should give Max more props for that turn 1 pass instead of a lot of people are trying to blame Piastri. It's like, what else did you want him to do? Took his line perfectly. I think Max really threaded the needle there, and it was just nice to see like a good battle between teams. But that, as a McLaren or Red Bull fan, like you can take positives from this, but
absolutely. And realistically, you have to remember, like, in that cockpit, these drivers can't see what we see, right? So we may look back at it and say, oh, well, why didn't Piastri turn in earlier? Well, from his vantage point, he didn't think he could. So I agree. There's been some commentary about, oh, well, he could have done this, he could have done that. It's like, well, we got what we got. And frankly, it was great the way it was. And anything else could have ended in disaster for one of them, or we could be talking about bullshit penalties that got applied. So I think it ended perfectly the way it was. Yeah.
Or we're talking about Max the Monster again. He takes Piastri out in the first corner. Or vice versa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, couldn't have asked for a better first turn. And yeah, you're right. Like Piastri, like, how is he supposed to see that coming? How is he supposed to anticipate something like that? It's just, I know it's Max, but like he did not leave as much space as it seems. Anyway, sorry.
No, and that was a full balls out move from Max. I don't see how anybody could have defended from that.
No.
I don't even think Max could have defended from that.
No. It's kind of, it's not really what Piastri did at Saudi Arabia, but it's kind of similar in the sense that, like, Max stamped his authority in that turn, and Piastri has stamped his authority three races ago or 2 races ago. Like, they're going back and forth with each other right now, and this is very exciting. And I don't think even if Max didn't make that move, turn 1, I think just the way he was going, he probably takes him by the end of the first lap. He probably he would have bought himself a lap at most if he defended better. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Anything else you want to add on that? I think you were going off on one tangent there about Piastri, about McLaren. No? Okay.
No. As far as a good for Max, yeah, I agree. I think I just said it all. Red Bull, they seem pretty spot on this weekend. Even on the Yuki side, which we'll talk about in the second half. But they did a phenomenal job to get that car back into race-ready condition, because that was a horrible crash he had in qualifying. It's qualifying, right?
Yes, yeah. Q1, one of the first laps, yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely horrendous crash. That had to have been a new car for race day. So they put in a shit ton of work to get him out there. And he was able to make up 10 places, right? So yeah, there were a couple of DNFs, but I would say on merit, he managed to get himself back into the points, which is good. It's not as good as it should be, and we'll talk about him again in the second half. But I think there's something to be said there on the good column as well.
I'll have
the fact that he was able to fight back.
Yes, absolutely. Like, it could have been a disastrous weekend. Instead, it's just kind of like a so-so weekend.
Yeah.
I'll save that more for the second half then. I had him as a meh, but I'll save that for our second half discussion. I think Christian Horner has a stay of execution at least for 2 more races, but because apparently that was the rumor going into this race, that he was on the chopping block, and that's why Ollie Oakes resigned. And Alpine, we'll save that also for the second half as well. But yeah, he's at least saved himself 2 races, and we could easily be talking about him on the chopping block again, because Red Bull's not particularly good at Monaco. So, yeah.
What are you talking about?
They're
great around Monaco.
I guess Ricciardo in 2016, Max in 2021.
Max is not great because Max doesn't do well in confined spaces. But Red Bull as a whole has done pretty well in Monaco.
I guess I should say Red Bull with Max.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to remember that Red Bull is not Max and Max is not Red Bull.
Who are you kidding? At least these days. All right. So yeah, let's go on to another good. Do you have one off the top of your head?
Another good? Williams.
I was going there too. Let's stick to it.
So Williams did really well all weekend. They were on it, and I would say on merit, they were ahead of Ferrari the entire weekend. On merit in the race, they bested Mercedes. Right? I think that makes sense. So
bested Mercedes and half of Ferrari.
Oh, yeah.
And half of Ferrari.
Yep, exactly. Sainz still not where I would like him to be, but he's scoring points, and he seems to be comfortable. So overall, I think it was a fantastic week for Williams. 14 points this weekend, which, I mean, in recent memory, 14 points was their yearly total.
Yeah, 17 last year.
Right. So they're doing phenomenally. They're currently in 5th place. And this is, let me check. Yep, this is their highest points finish all year so far.
Yeah. Sainz has
hopefully they're going to keep this up, and we'll see them potentially inch out Ferrari.
That's a tough ask. I hope so too.
It's doable.
How many points are they behind them now? Because I think they only have 50 some odd points.
63-ish. 114 to 51.
They're gonna need some 5th and 6th place finishes, and they're gonna need Sainz to be the 5th, I think, for them to start catching.
They're gonna need Ferrari to DNF, but
yes,
with those motors, it's quite possible.
Oh yeah, And that's why I'm saying like top five, like 5 and 6, which is more than doable. Like you said, they're miles ahead of where they were with Sargent, Latifi, even Russell. Right? Think about it. When was the last time we saw them getting 14 points a race? Probably Massa and Bottas era, Stroll era, right? Like this is a whole other.
Yeah, it would have been. I think the last time would have been Bottas and Stroll.
Yeah, I don't think were they ever
Yep.
teammates. Bottas
Yeah,
and Stroll.
yeah.
Oh wow, amazing.
Bottas. Oh, no, maybe not.
It was Massa and Stroll, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking when Bottas was at Mercedes and he bested Stroll to the line in Azerbaijan.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was Massa and Stroll.
yeah. This is a great territory for them. This is where they want to be right now. And yeah, I hope they catch Ferrari too, but it's a tall order. Maybe next year, if they keep up
I
this.
would love for Ferrari to come in fifth.
After all that hype, absolutely. All the hype going into the year, and they've gotten one podium and one sprint win.
You know what else that means? That
What?
they're only one place above their customer team.
Yeah, yeah. We haven't seen that in a long time, have we?
No.
Yeah, on merit, it just keeps clicking. At least for Albon. Albon, this is a lot of years of hard work finally paying off. I think Sainz is going to just need time. I think this is a tougher ask than originally thought, but still, they're night and day than what they were with their previous drivers.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you and I have talked about it in the past. I'm not sure if it's ever been recorded, but that was our big gripe. Like if Williams would just invest in drivers, forget about everything else. Build whatever car, invest in drivers, they would have been better off earlier. Right? Like Williams really started to drop off when it was Stroll and Sirotkin. Two pay drivers, effectively. And from there, it was just an absolute plummet to the bottom. Because like we just talked about, when it was Stroll and Massa, they were good. Once it was Stroll and another pay driver, straight to the bottom. And it's taken a shit ton of time to build back up. And it's probably for the best. They needed that to happen to get the Williams family out. Not that I have anything against them per se, but I don't think they saw what was needed. And then once the money was there, I think, potentially, how do I put this without sounding like an asshole? The second set of eyes looked at it and said, well, let's get two drivers in the car and see what happens. Right? So invest in the team, make sure everything's there. But at the same time, we can't do this with people who don't deserve to be here.
You're only as good as your muse with engineers. There's been a lot of discussions on that. Like you can, like we're looking more on this later with Aston Martin, but you can only do so much when the drivers stink. And much like Aston Martin, it seems like when Lance Stroll's involved, it's just a lost cause. Yeah. So I think Jacques Villeneuve said it earlier in the year. He said something along the lines of maybe the Williams has always been this good, but Albon never needed to step up against his teammates, and his teammates provided nothing. Like we know last year, Sargent was a negative because anytime they brought upgrades, he would just crash it.
Yep. Now, I don't agree with Villeneuve. And most of the time I don't agree with Villeneuve. I think he needs to not be a pundit. But the cars have gotten better. And he's right in the sense that Sargent was a negative because he'd get out there and he'd crash the upgrade and they don't have the data. That's definitely a hindrance. Albon brought that car to where it was even with that issue. And yes, they're going to take an exponential step now that they have two good drivers doing the same thing. So he's partly right, but ultimately he's just an arrogant prick who likes to talk shit about people. So
Agreed.
As you may.
Agreed. But it is a good point. I think you're right, though. It was definitely better this year than last year. Last year was not a great car. They were still experimenting, but I think I think you've kind of alluded to this. Albon built a good base up to this point, and now we're seeing some exponential results from there. I think he's gone. Sean, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I'm still here. I was trying to sneak away to refill my drink before you stopped talking, but
Well,
apparently I was too slow.
all right. Well, I got to cut out 40 seconds, but that's okay.
Yeah, leave it in.
It's part of the love. It's part of the magic. All right. Okay. Enough about Williams. I don't think I have any other goods this weekend. I'm trying to think through it. Like, I have a lot of mess. So, like, to me, is Ferrari a bad or are they a good? Like, to me, they're a meh.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're into the mass on your side, I've got a couple more goods, I think, that I'm at least one more that I'm thinking through.
Okay.
I'm gonna put Hajar in the good.
Okay.
He has been consistently outperforming the other rookies, with the exception of Antonelli. But even this weekend, he outperformed Antonelli. And barring that absolute rookie mistake he made in Australia, he's been great. I mean, as far as rookies go in recent history, he's come out and he's put in the performance and he's been scoring points early in the season and he seems comfortable in that car. And just to rub salt in the wound, he's outperforming his non-rookie teammate who has experience in that team. So he went out there and he qualified well, and his race pace wasn't the same as the qualifying pace, but he hung around and he stuck it out and he got 2 points out of it. Should it have been more? Yeah, possibly. But, what do we have? 2 VSCs and 2 safety cars? Or is it 1 safety car?
1 safety car, 1 VSC.
Is that all it was?
Yeah.
I thought it was more. Anyway, he stuck it out. It was a difficult strategy, but he made it. He even bested Tsunoda in the Red Bull. Obviously, Tsunoda had a much larger hurdle to jump, but he got 2 points out of it. So now we're sitting on 7 points for Hajar, and he is the leading. Yep, he's the leading Racing Bulls driver this year.
Wow.
So I'm going to call it good.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. Yeah. 18 races now for Lawson over 3 seasons. So he's definitely not a rookie. That's basically a season of races. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So agree with you there. And on top of that, yeah, Hajar, it seems like he's the type of person who needed like a big fuck up to take all the pressure off of him. I think he put a lot of pressure on himself going into that first race. And he fucked up in such a major way that I think he was just like, it can only get better from here. So, and he's performed consistently. He's doing exactly what he needed to do, to the point where they even considered before this race or after qualifying, replacing Tsunoda, which would be stupid, but it would be absolutely mentally insane. But it's just, he is doing good, so we got to give him that.
Yeah, exactly. So good on him.
Yeah, we raved about Yuki finishing 10th last year in that in a similar car. So for him to come 9th, I know he got a little bit of help, like you said, but still impressive.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, that car is not a car that he helped develop, but he's been able to hop into it and be comfortable. Like, his points tally isn't great, but he hasn't been at the bottom. He's been mid-pack. Right? When we were talking about 20 drivers, mid-pack is realistically 6th through 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been there the entire season so far. I'm going to say so far he is the second best rookie. And I think the points justify that. They do.
They do, but also, yeah, Antonelli's in an exponentially better car. I wonder what would it be like with roles reversed.
Yeah, exactly. And we won't ever know, but that's a good point to make.
Mm-hmm. All right. You said you had 2 more good, or was it just 1?
Let me refresh my memory here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was just 1.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to put some of the meh in the good. Like I said, I think every team had a story this week. And like we were just talking about Ferrari before that, where horrible qualifying. It could have been a disaster of a weekend, out like both out in Q2. But they recovered pretty well in the race. So to say that they were bad or good, like how much better could they have been if they qualified well? Could they have fought for the win? I'm just going to put them in a meh. I don't want to talk about them every weekend. I think Hamilton's slowly coming to the party. I think Leclerc is just consistently useless and does just enough, and finishing 4th to 7th is his happy place. And they're just going to keep gathering those low points until they figure out a race-winning car, if ever. So yeah, I'm not going to say they're bad or good. What are your thoughts?
I mean, in the scope of Ferrari this year, it was a good. Hamilton seemed positive. Leclerc seemed absolutely miserable. And I think someone has to have Leclerc on suicide watch. But yeah, I mean, it is just, it's Ferrari on home soil. They should be doing better.
Exactly.
Not just because it's home soil, but because they're Ferrari. And I was listening to Beyond the Grid. Was it Beyond? No, it wasn't Beyond the Grid. It was another podcast. Sorry. And they're talking about Ferrari and how people grow up and they see Ferrari as the greatest team and everything, whatever. And I think you and I have talked about it before. Like Ferrari's only been as good as their perceived self is. I can't think of the words right now, because of Michael Schumacher. When you actually go back in history, their track record isn't actually as good as people make them out to be. People make them out to be the winningest team in F1, which they're not. They've been there the longest.
Yes. Yeah, they're only up, I think, a few constructors' championships on Williams or McLaren.
Williams and McLaren, yeah.
Yeah, it's not much.
Because they've been there since the 1950s.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, they do because of that. And we're also talking constructors' championships where all you needed was 3 or 4 wins in the early days to get a constructors' championship because the seasons were short, and there were so many cars. Right, we talked about in an episode last season that at one point there was like 25 cars on the grid, and 25 cars, and I think 15 teams. Like that's how ridiculous it was. Not every team ran 2 cars, right?
And some didn't qualify.
So
back when you had the 107% rule, yeah.
Right. So if you look back, like if you were to go from modern F1 days, and modern F1, I'll be generous and say back into the 80s, they're nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, one period. Like 6-year period, essentially.
Yeah. So in the last few years, they've been improving back to where they were in, let's say, the end of the Vettel days. And the Vettel days were a long-awaited improvement from essentially the Alonso days, which were an underwhelming development and a long-awaited improvement since the Schumacher days. So ultimately, they've had a whole lot of false starts. Yeah, they've had some success, obviously, along the way with Raikkonen and whoever else. I'm sure you know better than I do.
Almost Massa, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, since Schumacher, they've been nowhere. So I don't get the hype. And realistically, in my book, I don't consider Ferrari necessarily a front-running team. To me, they're, say, mid-pack at best when you look at the history for the last 20 years. And yeah, so I kind of agree. This week was a so-so. And who knows? Maybe they'll be better in Monaco.
They better hope, because that was their second win last year. So if they're already 2 wins behind, this year is now officially a write-off if they don't win. If they don't win Monaco. That's a good point you bring up. Yeah, since 2000, or say 1999, when they won their first of 6 constructors. They won 2 more, I think, after that. They won 7 and 8 because, 7 they won because of the Spygate with McLaren. Otherwise, it was a McLaren, runaway. And 2008. Right. So that's 8 titles since 99. Mercedes has the same. I think Red Bull has 7 since 99. I know they became a team in 2005. And yeah, McLaren just got their first, but they look like they may start doing a run, especially with Piastri. So yeah, that's they're one of 3, right? Like they're it's a 3-horse race. They're not clearly the team. Are you right? Like, cause yeah, who was growing up with Ferrari dominating? Maybe me and you, but not the new age kids, not the kids who are starting to get into Formula One. The boomers weren't.
But that's no, sorry, but that's my point too. Like we grew up with Michael Schumacher. We knew Ferrari as Michael Schumacher.
Exactly.
And the last time I remember Michael doing anything was the year he retired. And I was beginning college.
2006.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then it wasn't great. But that year particularly, I remember his performance in Brazil, which was a total rage-fueled drive from him. But since then, what have they had?
Yeah, Raikkonen won the driver's title and Michael's car, and he made a meal of it the following year. And then they won the constructors in 2008, and then they haven't won since. Right? Like, so
that's...
Yeah, almost...
But that's almost 20 years.
Exactly. Yeah, so... and like the boomers didn't necessarily grow up with a great Ferrari. They definitely didn't, because they were growing up through the 70s and 80s. Ferrari was falling apart. Right?
Prost and Berger and...
That was the 90s.
Was that the 90s?
That was the early 90s with Prost, yeah, when they kicked him out.
Berger was before that?
Berger was before and after.
Oh, okay.
With a Lacey.
So who would it have been in the 80s and 70s?
That's an excellent question. Nicky Lauda in the 70s. They won a few. Jody Scheckter won in 79. But yeah, I don't even know who the drivers. Villeneuve was the 80s, but he died pretty young, right? Like they may have had more championships with him, but he never won.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of what it was, right? Because you just named 3 very big name drivers that all went to Ferrari. And they went to Ferrari for the same reason that all the drivers these days go to Ferrari, because of the name and the prestige and the this and the that and the circle jerk that is Ferrari. But when you look at it, like, okay, Lauda wanted to go to Ferrari because the history of it, sure. Jody Scheckter is there, and I know I've heard him talk about it. I can't remember why he ended up there, but, effectively the same thing. He talked to old man Enzo and managed to get a drive, and he was good. But again, this is the time when you didn't need 10 to 15 race wins a season to get a championship, right? You needed a handful and some decent places, and then you were okay. And at the same time, the car was expected to break down, 30% of the season, right? The reliability was absolute garbage. So even if you weren't competitive, there's a good chance the guy in front of you just wouldn't finish.
Good point.
So these days, when you have reliable cars, and you and I have talked about it, but Ferraris are not reliable cars.
No.
Road cars, race cars, whatever. So, anyway.
Yeah. We've already given them too much airtime, but yeah, that's a very good point you made. So yeah, it's a brand. It's a great exercise in marketing, but not necessarily facts. I think that's how we can wrap that up.
Absolutely. Well said.
My other meh was Aston Martin, right?
Could have been as a meh?
Yeah, it could have been so much more, right? Like we didn't expect much going in. We thought they would be on the back foot. Like last year, they finished 19th on merit, like finished the race. Genuinely slow. It seems like some upgrades worked. They had a good qualifying, and then they just couldn't execute it in the race.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like there was some improvement there. It seems like old man Newey may have put something into these upgrades, or at least been consulted.
He did not.
I know. Well, whatever. Then they figured something out without him. And hopefully...
They figured out nothing.
Explain yourself.
Oh, I'm hesitating to say more than that because I don't agree with your man. I do want to talk about them, but they're definitely a bad. So
Okay, let's move on then.
I'll let you finish your point, and yeah.
That was basically it. Like, we'll save it for the second half. But yeah, to me, they're a meh because like it could have been so much worse. I guess my bar was so low.
Sure.
My bar was so low.
Yeah, you saw the positive of qualifying. You're hoping that they're going to improve, but then the race kind of shut the bed.
I'm not hoping anything. I'm enjoying seeing them fail, quite frankly, until Alonso retires.
Figurative hope.
What else did I have for a meh? I guess Sauber. You can put him in a meh. Like wasn't good weekend, but the fact that they weren't last should be a positive.
I didn't even notice where they finished. I just know they didn't score points, and that's all that I cared about at the time.
Let's keep it at that. Maybe we're done then with the goods. Maybe because I want to put a bad meh. I want to put a meh in the bad. So we might be done then.
Okay, let me just look at. Sorry, before we do that, let me just look at Sauber. And
I know Bortoleto finished last, but he was running up there until the safety cars.
Okay, yeah.
So was Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg was in the points.
Oh,
for a bit.
Yeah,
for a bit.
Hulk didn't do too bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they finally showed up for the first time in 6 races. So I want to give them a meh.
They did, and maybe this is the point where I should talk about it. I'm thinking about something in the background. It doesn't fit into the good bad scenario, but maybe the mehs make sense. There seems to be a few cars that are tailored to, let's say, the classic circuits. And I think this is a hangover from the days of testing in Barcelona and, let's say, the old school F1 days where we had proper tracks, not all these wannabe street circuits and 90-degree corners and close walls, where you actually built a Grand Prix to go Grand Prix racing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this shows you the teams that have built cars for that. Right. So McLaren is obviously one. I'm not going to include Red Bull because Max is a monster and he'd make a Grand Prix car out of anything. Williams seems to be back in that range. And then we have, like we said, the Saubers, which I still think that car is designed very poorly. Aston Martin, Alpine, I'll put up there as well. Seem to be properly designed Grand Prix cars in the sense that they're meant to be lent on. They're meant to push wide a little bit and, have a little bit of margin, which isn't what you want on a street circuit with walls that are too close. So I think there's something to be said about almost a 2-tiered system of teams that have set up their cars or set up the design of the car for proper Grand Prix circuits like Imola, and teams who have realized that, half the time we're going to be racing at circuits that are absolute trash, so let's set it up for those two. And
2 specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are obviously teams like McLaren that have nailed the intermediate where they can do both, right? And then we have teams like Ferrari that can't seem to fucking nail anything.
Yeah. And the android that is Max that can drive anywhere, like you said.
Yes.
Yeah. And on that note, I think we should end the good because it sounds like we're gearing up for a whole lot of bad.
I think so.
Yeah. All right. F1 Philosophy at YouTube. Please like and subscribe to our videos. F1 Philosophy at Spotify. We'll be back for the bad.